Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Today let's talk about batteries, two kinds, lead acid and lithium, and see what we can discover about them. And I want to clarify one point that I made earlier about why just leaving a lead acid battery with your power supply across it is maybe not the best idea. I mean, it works sort of, but you're not taking full advantage of the battery. So let's take a look at the charts. The objective here is to show some differences between lithium and lead acid batteries, and they're very different. And I want to also show the conceptual lead acid battery charge cycle and why holding it at 13.8 volts is not necessarily good for the battery. I mean, it will work, but you're wasting a lot of the battery's capability. I'm going to talk a little bit about the lithium ion charge cycle too, and just show a few things about lithium batteries. They're fairly new. First of all, they come from opposite ends of the periodic chart. Lithium up here is the third lightest element. The only elements lighter are helium and hydrogen, both gases. Lithium itself is very light. It's the lightest metal there is. It is very reactive too. Now, if you look down here at lead at 82 means 82 protons. Lead is the heaviest non-radioactive metal there is. If you go up above it here in the periodic chart, you will find that any elements heavier than this are just naturally radioactive. The heaviest naturally occurring element on Earth is uranium, which is 92 protons. Lead is 82 protons. There are traces of plutonium that have been found naturally that are actually byproducts of natural radiation from uranium. When I was in the Air Force, my commander had an interesting curiosity in his office. It was a spent uranium, so very little radioactivity. It was about that big. Spent uranium bullet from a fighter jet that had been practicing fighting those over one of the bombing ranges. They use the depleted uranium because they're so heavy they'll go through anything. We've been using lead acid batteries since the early days of the automobile. In fact, there was quite a contest between electric and gasoline powered automobiles at the time. There was, at one time, you couldn't tell which way it was going to go. Of course, it went with the gasoline, and now people are starting to look at electric cars again, but it's because of the batteries. Now, I have one of each of the lead acid. This is the lead acid over here. 12 volts, 8 amp hours. It's an absorbed glass mat battery, and it's completely sealed. This is a lithium iron phosphate battery, which is one of the lithium chemistries that's very stable. Inside this case up here are some electronics that keep this battery from becoming dangerous. So it's not just a simple battery. This is the charger for the lead acid battery down here, this green thing. It's a battery tender. It's an automatic 3-stage charger, and it's what I use to charge this up. This is a lithium ion charger over here. It's very important to use the correct charger with the right battery here. Now, lithium batteries have a bit of a bad name because early lithium batteries would burst out in flames, including this one that was on a Boeing 787 in flight. And this battery burst open on it. This picture from the NTSB that I got via Wikipedia shows what happened inside when the temperature got too hot. And this particular incident right here, this one incident, set back the cause of lithium batteries for, I think, several years, maybe even 10 years. To this day, a lot of aviation people are real leery about using lithium batteries in aircraft. I know my aircraft has a lead acid battery in it for engine starting. So what they have done, and here is an example of just like a little AA cell with a little tiny piece of electronics. This probably cost a penny to create. And this right here is your battery controller. And it makes sure that if you short the battery, it disconnects it. And if you let the charge get too low, it disconnects it. And it will not let it overcharge. Okay, so this is the safety valve. You don't see these in batteries because if you were a manufacturer and you said, our batteries are safe, well, what's going to happen is nobody's going to believe you. They're going to believe the opposite. Well, they're telling us they're safe because they must not be, you know. So actually, the lithium batteries you get today are quite safe. There are a couple of chemistries. I mentioned this one, the lithium iron phosphate battery. This is designed for powering things like little scooters and so on. It is lighter, by the way, than this battery by like a factor of 4. This thing is heavy. This thing is not light, but it's a great deal lighter than this one right here. Now, this right here is the chart that makes it worth it to go through everything that we go through to try and make lithium ion batteries the battery of the future. Here's your typical lead acid when it's fully charged. The battery voltage is more like 12.7, but they're showing 13 here. This is a discharge curve, so there's no charge going on. The lead acid goes down below 50% charge at about a little under 12 volts. Now, the problem with that is if you go down into here, you are drawing power out of the battery. You can get it out down to 9 volts, but the problem is you're doing damage to the battery in the process of doing this. The chemistry is hurting the lead plates. It's sulfating them. It's doing things it shouldn't do. Okay, so normally a lead acid battery, even one that is set up for 8 amp hours, you can really only get about 4 amp hours out before it's time to recharge the battery. Now look at the lithium ion. It actually has a little higher voltage. And, you know, a lot of ham equipment is really designed for 13.8, so this is a little better. But look at this, a fairly constant voltage until 80% depth of discharge, okay? And then the voltage drops rapidly. And at this point here, it's where you cut it off and say, okay, this battery should not be used any further and we'll recharge it. But look at the difference. Look at the difference. The lead acid battery is way down here at 11 volts, while this thing's still at 13 volts. And you're not damaging the battery by taking it over the knee of the curve on the discharge curve. So I guess to explain the difference, lead acid batteries have a very mature chemistry. There are different types of lead acid batteries. For example, this one is a absorbed glass mat. They also make them flooded, which is like the one you have in your car. And if you're using them for deep cycle, I use absorbed glass mat deep cycle batteries for my storage. They're like 15 years old, knock on wood, and they're still going strong, and I won't replace them as long as they continue to work, and they continue to work well. They're designed specifically for solar applications. So it's sort of like the lead acid batteries are starting to look like the steam engines. The steam engines got up to, in the 50s, very, very high performance levels, and then the electric trains came out. All the new trains like these are electric, and they go very, very, very fast. You can't get a steam engine to go that fast. So, I realize that, an orange engine is nowhere near as romantic as an old, grimy, black steam engine. And this one is from the Durango-Silverton Narrow Gauge Railway, and they run this all year round, actually. And you can take rides on it. It is at the depot in Silverton where I took this picture. This one I got from Wikipedia. And these things will go 300 miles an hour, or 200 miles an hour. They're fast, very fast. This one right here, I timed it one time. My wife and I rode this from Silverton down to Durango. It took 4 hours for a 40-mile trip, 10 screaming miles an hour. This thing will go a lot faster than that. You see the difference? Steam engines are dirty, hard to maintain, have to be fueled, and so on. And the electric engines are clean, simple, and the suspensions on them are very exotic, so they can go very fast. That's what's happening with the newer lithium-ion batteries. The lithium-ion battery technology is progressing rapidly. I got this one the last time I was at Dayton, so that would have been in 2019. I picked this up there for $100. They're more expensive still than the lead acid batteries, but this is the one I tend to use as my bench power supply instead of this. I do have a adjustable bench power supply, but if I'm going to be powering a QRP radio, I'll pick one of these batteries. Now I want to talk a little bit about charging. I'm going to show a slide on the lead acid charge cycle and then a slide on the lithium ion charge procedures. There are many different lithium chemistries, and they each have a different way of charging, whereas with lead acid, it's pretty much the same for all of them. There are many variations of this curve. There are many people who say that, oh, this isn't 13.5 volts, it's 13.3 or it's 13.8, and I realize there's a lot of emotion attached to these. I'm just going to take this one right here and talk about the three-phase charge of a regular lead acid battery, starting from one that is not charged, okay? And during this time, this battery is not being used, it's just being charged. These curves originated in the old World War II submarines, which underwater had electric propulsion with huge, huge banks of lead acid batteries that were recharged by the diesel engines through the snorkel or when the submarine was surfaced. Anyway, there is the absorption phase, and I frankly think that might be spelled with a P. Yeah, it likes it better. Okay, absorption phase. During this time, you feed it current, and it shows the current here. The current should be 1 over the capacity per hour. Okay, so if you're going to do capacity per hour of 0.1, you're going to charge this battery at a constant current until it reaches its max voltage. Now this shows a max voltage of about 14.5. My solar batteries, which are AGM sealed batteries, have a maximum of 14.1. They tell me not to charge it beyond that because it'll start to gas, and it's not good to create gas inside a sealed battery. Anyway, you hold it at that, so you're pushing current into it at a steady rate. The voltage is rising. When it hits the top, about 14.1 for the sealed batteries. Okay, then you hold the voltage, and the current drops off. This is an essential part of the charge, because notice here, the charge state is somewhere here in the 75% region at the end of this phase. So if you stop here and you're charging, you're throwing away 20% of the capacity of the battery. And considering that you can only get about half the capacity of the battery anyway, you want to pay attention to this. This phase is called bulk charge. This is absorption, where it absorbs more power till it gets its state of charge up close to 100%. When it gets to a minimum amount of current, which shows over here as about 20% of this max current, then you switch the voltage to the float voltage. This chart shows it as 13.5. I have seen charts that show it at 13.8 and charts that show it at 13.3. I was raised on 13.3. But anyway, that gets you up all the way to 100% charge on this thing, and you get the most out of it. This is called the trickle phase, sometimes called the maintenance phase. Now, note that a lead-acid battery, once it gets to the trickle phase, you can remove the charge from it. It'll hold its charge if it's not real cold, for a month or more. It'll hold it quite a while. My truck sat idle for the better part of a month after I broke my ankle, and we got the thing out a couple days ago to go up and visit the airplane and see what they were doing with it. And it started right up. It held the charge without a charge controller. If you get a trickle charger, like you're going to maintain a motorcycle battery over the winter, it will keep this voltage, but it assumes that the battery is charged. Because if you're over here and you're trying to use a battery maintainer to charge the battery, you're going to be right here where this is, and this will give you less than 40% charge. So if you try to charge a battery with a 13.8 volt battery charger, first of all, you're going to have unlimited current. It's going to want to take unlimited current. You need something in there to kind of limit the current. But you're never going to get about 40% charge because you never finish the bulk phase, nor do you allow it to get the absorption phase. Now, what do you do with a battery that goes between use and non-use, use, non-use? For example, my solar batteries. They get sun, so we get a nice bulk charging capability in the morning, but as the day goes on, the charging capability goes down, and I might use the radio for a while. So that is where you get one of the nice, good battery charge controllers like I have for my solar system that keeps track of all this. It keeps track of what phase the battery is in and keeps it charged. Now, I have a little battery controller for my solar batteries that was originally designed, well, it was originally set up to charge the lithium-ion batteries, specifically this one. But I dug into the instructions to switch it over to the lead acid because that's what I needed to use it for. You know, my next batteries, if these ever die on me, I mean, they're really treated nicely. If they ever die on me, that's going to be lithium ion, and then I'll have to get a new controller. Well, what about charging lithium ion batteries? Now, I pulled this out of the text in the Wikipedia article that talked about lithium ion charge procedures. It says basically there are two phases. A constant current phase, okay, where you just pump in a constant current and let the voltage do what it's going to do. And then when you get to the right voltage, you switch over to constant voltage and just keep it at that. Okay, now it says during the constant voltage phase, Charger applies a voltage equal to the maximum cell voltage times the number of cells in series in the battery as the current gradually declines towards zero until the current is below a set threshold of about 3% of the initial constant charge current, and then it stops. And periodic topping about once every 500 hours. Well, there's 176 hours in a week. So you can figure out what that is. About 3 weeks, 4 weeks, once a month. You want to do the top charging, and top charging is recommended when the voltage goes below 4 volts a cell, okay? And then they throw in this little statement here. Failure to follow current voltage limitations can result in an explosion. Like this. Okay, and this is something you don't want to have happen with your lithium-ion battery. That's why you use the charger that came with it, which this was right here. You can still get these from Bioenno Power. Bioenno sells to the RV market and stuff like that, but they also specifically sell to the amateur radio market. Okay, and I guess it's because they've got hams there or so on. Anyway, this is the charger that came with this battery right here. I paid $100 for this at Dayton, came with this. I paid about $40 for this and $30 for this, maybe a little bit more. So it turns out the total price was about the same, and this does not have anywhere near the capacity of this one right here. So what are my conclusions here? I'm going to go ahead and write them down because I did a video a couple days ago on why you can't use a dipole to cover all of 80 meters, and I think the way I explained it, I got a lot of complaints from people that it wasn't clear. I got comments from other people that it was magnificently clear. So I'm going to take that as meaning as it really wasn't very clear and try and do a little bit better. Lots of research is going into various lithium chemistries because of the electric car market. Trying to put lead-acid batteries into a car is not a good thing to do. They're so heavy that no matter what you do to get that car to go 30 or 40 miles, you've just got ridiculously heavy car. So the new batteries that like Tesla is making, General Motors is making, other people like that are making, are designed for various different chemistries that they're trying. Now this is really important. You cannot just swap out a lithium battery for a lead-acid battery because the charge cycles are different. Okay, the discharge curves are different, the charging methods are different, and you're going to have a problem. So some of the newer chargers are made where you can tell them if it's a lithium or a lead-acid battery, and it will do the appropriate thing with it. Now, I'm also going to point out that lithium will improve with time. Lithium are fairly new. It's like this old steam engine thing. The steam engines, by the 1950s, reached a state of perfection where they got just about every ounce of energy they could get out of the coal or oil. They ran well, they ran fast, they were a little lower maintenance and so on. But the fact of the matter is the early electric engines, one of the F5s, somebody tell me in the comment if that's right, the GE or whoever did them. And they were just new, they were brand new, they were diesel electric, and the diesel generator running electric motors. And they were so much better than the steam engine, even if they had to string 3 or 4 electric in a row to pull the same load, it was cheaper, it was better than the steam engines. And that's what's already happened with lithium ion, but it will improve with time. The research on these are not finished. Well, I hope you found that interesting. I really like this lithium-ion battery. It's light enough you can do this. If you take the Duracell, yeah, it's it's heavy, and it's a smaller capacity battery than this other one. So, like I said, the next time I replace batteries here in the station, the repeater battery gets replaced about every 3 years. But the big batteries that are the main storage batteries for my solar system are, in fact, big lead acid sealed AGM batteries, and boy, are they heavy. Had to move them up from the basement, and I had to get somebody to move them for me. Young kid, about 20, 22, 23 years old, and he was showing off carrying 2 of them at once. He only did that once. He brought the other batteries singly. They are very, very, very heavy, and I've got a extremely sturdy box for them with great big casters on the bottom so I can sort of move it around. Well, batteries are interesting. They're important. All the radios these days come with lithium-ion rechargeable batteries, and if you charge them correctly, you should be fine. As a rule of thumb, when your lithium-ion powered radio shows that it's charged, you can pick it up out of the charger and set it down and just leave it. It'll hold the charge for a long time. Lithium-ion batteries don't need a trickle charge, okay? Because what's going to happen is that charger is going to shut off when it gets to the point that it's done charging. And if you leave it in there and the green light is on, it's not charging the battery. It's just sitting there. It says, hey, battery charge, you can take it out now. So we'll all get used to the new lithium ions. We will, over the next 10 to 20 years, settle in on a standard chemistry for these things. Right now, the research market is wide open on them. They're still producing them. Tesla's producing them like crazy. General Motors is producing them. I've got one here that does a nice job for me. This is a flashlight from Sofern that I reviewed, oh golly, 2 or 3 years ago. I think there is an Estee video on it, and it has one battery in it that is about, AA battery comes to about here. So this is a big honkin' 2.8 amp hour battery right there. Okay, and it has a separate charger for it. So I have to take this out and charge it once in a while. And I'll tell you, this thing acts as a good flashlight for a long time, and it's extremely bright. It puts out about 800 lumens at its brightest, which is about as bright as a 60-watt incandescent light bulb. So they're pretty amazing things. Well, that's the end of the technical part. I hope that you will subscribe and click like and share this video with other people. By subscribing, you are telling YouTube that you're giving your vote of support to my channel. And if you click the little bell, it will give you some sort of an indication that there's a new battery. They don't do it by email anymore, and I haven't figured out how they do it otherwise. So, and please check out dcasler.com/support for different ways to support this channel. And until we next meet, 73.